Get ready for the news that's shaping our future. U.S. Senator Shelley Moore Capito is diving deep into the economy, tackling rising gas prices, and discussing the massive infrastructure needs of data centers. We break down how Capito is fighting for West Virginia families and pushing for the energy independence the nation desperately needs.
Never get caught with a dead phone again. This INIU portable charger is compact, travel-friendly, and gives you fast 45-watt charging with a built-in USB-C cable, so there's no need to carry extra cords. With 10,000 mAh power, it's perfect for busy days, trips, emergencies, or anytime your battery drops too low. Grab yours on Amazon through the link in the comments before your phone hits 1%.
Next up, we turn our attention to the dark side of the data center boom in Illinois. Melissa Garriga explores how these massive facilities aren't just polluting and raising utility bills. She reveals the deeper, troubling connections between this expansion and global conflicts fueled by fossil fuels and the ethical use of artificial intelligence. In big news from Chile, Amazon Web Services is moving forward with a major data center expansion on the outskirts of Santiago, overcoming environmental challenges after residents lost a legal battle. We look at the tensions between global tech demand and local environmental protection as this massive infrastructure project moves ahead. Finally, we confront the fight for local control. Carly Burriant is furious about Republicans pushing big tech expansion ahead of New Hampshire residents, warning about the strain data centers place on power grids and demanding accountability from tech giants. Stay with us for the full story. U.S. Senator Shelley Moore Capito addressed key issues including gas prices, broadband expansion, and data centers ahead of West Virginia's primary election on Tuesday. Capito, seeking a third six-year term, emphasized her commitment to making life more affordable for West Virginia families, highlighting support for the Working Families Tax Cuts Act, which includes no tax on tips, overtime, and Social Security. When discussing rising gas prices, which average over $4.40 in West Virginia, Capito expressed concern but linked potential price decreases to the resolution of the Iranian situation and broader economic growth, stressing the need for energy independence. She noted recent job growth and tax refunds, but called for price reductions. On broadband infrastructure, Capito acknowledged the delay in the Broadband Equity, Access and Deployment (BEAD) program, but confirmed West Virginia's plan is approved, advocating for additional funding to expand cell towers and infrastructure beyond the initial allocation. Addressing the debate over data centers, Capito argued that they are critical for the AI race against China. She detailed her efforts to engage with CEOs of major tech companies like Amazon and Google, urging them to improve communication with local communities regarding electricity costs and water safety, emphasizing that companies must clearly define their role in providing power and community care. She also countered concerns about employment by pointing to local tax benefits resulting from major investments. Capito affirmed strong relationships with President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance, expressing support for the administration's economic and energy policies. She cited her work on the Working Families Tax Cuts Act as her most significant accomplishment in her second term, noting its impact on families through provisions like child tax credits and daycare support. A growing resistance is surfacing against the expansion of data centers across the United States, with critics arguing that this boom is not merely an environmental or utility issue, but is deeply intertwined with global conflict and resource exploitation. Commentary by Melissa Garriga in the Jacksonville Journal-Courier highlights the dark side of the data center trend, suggesting it keeps Americans dependent on fossil fuel wars. Pew Research Center data indicates that a majority of new data centers, 67%, are slated for construction in rural areas, with 3/4 located in Midwestern and Southern towns. Illinois, for instance, already hosts 139 operational centers and has 123 more scheduled, representing one of the highest total figures nationally. The negative local impacts are not overlooked. Reports from locations like South Haven, Mississippi, cite severe noise and air pollution, leading residents to regret the development. Beyond pollution, concerns center on water system depletion and increased energy costs for consumers. Garriga posits that the foundation of this expansion involves exploitation far beyond local communities. Data centers rely heavily on fossil fuels, supplying nearly 60% of their power, particularly for continuous operation via emergency generators. This reliance ties the industry to resource extraction, fossil fuels and minerals like lithium and cobalt, which are often obtained through destabilizing conflicts and inhumane mining practices, including child labor. Furthermore, the ethical implications of artificial intelligence are significant. The rapid growth of data centers coincides with the increasing use of large language models by entities like the Pentagon for military applications, which has already been linked to war crimes, such as the use of AI in the bombing of a school in Iran. Critics argue that the promise of new jobs is misleading, as data centers often generate very few local positions. Garriga suggests that state officials should pivot from brokering tech deals to investing in renewable energy infrastructure and conservation jobs that sustain local economies. Ultimately, the commentary calls for a unified effort, urban and rural communities alike, to halt data center projects, especially in the Midwest and South, emphasizing that the future lies in investing in people and the land rather than an industry that fuels instability and conflict. Noi dung kai tight. Amazon Web Services is moving forward with plans for a major data center on the northern outskirts of Santiago after successfully overcoming an environmental challenge from local residents. Opponents had contested the project's permit, arguing it failed to account for the high-voltage power line necessary to supply the site. Environmental authorities ruled in April that the data center could proceed, stipulating that any future power line proposal would require a separate assessment. Oz maintains that the facility has met all environmental requirements and will employ technologies designed to minimize energy and water consumption. This development is part of AWS's broader expansion strategy in Chile, where the company has committed to investing over $4 billion across 15 years to build and operate local infrastructure. The approval follows a political climate supportive of such projects, with Chilean President José Antonio Cast backing faster data center approvals and promising to streamline regulatory processes. This case highlights the ongoing tension surrounding the rapid global expansion of data centers, fueled by surging demand for cloud computing and artificial intelligence infrastructure. /N separately, the global renewable energy sector is facing significant disruption following new policy shifts in the United States. Major solar companies, banks, and insurers have suspended business with several recently constructed U.S. solar panel factories due to uncertainty over whether ties to China could disqualify them from federal clean energy subsidies. This disruption stems from provisions in President Donald Trump's 2025 One Big Beautiful Bill, which reduced Biden-era renewable incentives and barred certain China-linked companies from accessing remaining support. While the Treasury Department has yet to issue detailed enforcement guidance, this move deepens uncertainty across the sector. Industry groups warn that this crackdown risks slowing manufacturing growth and constraining new power capacity, particularly as solar is a key source for expanding electricity supply needed for AI-driven data centers, amidst rising demand and utility costs. U.S. solar manufacturers remain heavily reliant on Chinese equipment and technology, with China-linked firms contributing approximately 25 gigawatts to the nation's 66-gigawatt solar module capacity. /N in related financial news, the Intercontinental Exchange, ICE, and the Climate Bonds Initiative have established a strategic data partnership to enhance transparency in the global sustainable bond market. This collaboration merges ICE's market infrastructure and data services with the Climate Bonds Initiative's certification standards development, aiming to strengthen confidence in sustainable bond assessments by improving consistency and comparability. Furthermore, investors in Unilever are seeking reassurances regarding sustainability standards following the planned $65 billion merger with McCormick and Company, with concerns focused on maintaining deforestation-free sourcing and supply chain transparency across the newly combined entity. Carly Buriant has voiced strong condemnation of Republican efforts in New Hampshire state government, arguing that they are prioritizing big tech interests over the health and welfare of residents by undermining local control over data center construction. Buriant expressed anger over a recent vote by the Republican majority in the State House Committee on Municipal and County Government to recommend a bill that would restrict local government's ability to regulate data center development. As chair of the Hampton Select Board, Buriant stated she is frustrated by state leaders constraining local action in the best interest of their neighbors, noting that Republican representatives are favoring tech giants who heavily lobby state and federal governments. Buriant supports Senate Bill 439, sponsored by Senator Deborah Altshuler, which aimed to establish statewide requirements for data center development. The original proposal sought to limit these facilities to commercial and industrial zones and mandate regulations like setbacks and noise pollution limits, while allowing towns to use local zoning for further control. Buriant cited concerns raised by Representative Tom Corman, an emeritus professor of computer science at Dartmouth, who highlighted the significant strain data centers place on New Hampshire's infrastructure. Corman pointed out that a single large facility can consume at least 100 megawatts of electricity, enough to power 80,000 homes, and raised ecological concerns regarding the water required for cooling systems and the resulting noise pollution. Buriant criticized the version of the bill recommended by the House committee, calling it an abdication. She stressed that the priority in Washington and Concord should be safeguarding constituents rather than accelerating big tech expansion, arguing that these companies cannot be trusted to self-regulate when profits consistently supersede people. Buriant advocated for a moratorium on data center construction until legislation is in place that requires companies to offset impacts on public health, the environment, and energy prices, alongside robust antitrust enforcement and data privacy protections. Furthermore, Buriant connected the issue of unchecked tech power to broader concerns about accountability, noting that the state must act now to prevent harms caused by social media platforms regarding public health and democracy, rather than waiting for future class action lawsuits against AI companies. Buriant, a historian and Harvard Kennedy School professor, emphasized the need for working people to gain leverage against unregulated expansion. She reiterated her support for Senator Altshuler and suggested advocating for a moratorium until comprehensive impact mitigation measures are established. In a separate commentary, Buriant touched upon other pressing local issues, including the bankruptcy filing of the Morrison Communities, a nonprofit running a nursing home, signaling strain on the state's Medicaid care sector. She also addressed systemic issues regarding accountability and justice for victims within the state system, emphasizing the need for acknowledgement and action where past failures have gone unaddressed.